Hi boys and girls, this is lesson 7.4, multiplying fractions by whole numbers. Get that written in your notebook as well as today's date, and when you're done, come on back. Okay, so the math message for today. Let's pretend, because I really don't know if this is true, so let's pretend that one lap around our gym is 1/8 of a mile. Use that to write a multiplication equation to show the total distance a member of Team Kelly walked when he or she completed 3 laps. And then after you do that, between what two whole numbers does our answer to that lie? Okay? 2 questions. Figure those 2 things out in your notebook. When you're done, come back and check it out. Okay, hopefully you were able to tell me 3 times 1/8 equals 3/8. That's a multiplication equation that shows that problem. And if the answer is 3/8, that lies between the whole numbers of 0 and 1, right? So then let me ask you, so 3/8 is the third multiple of what unit fraction? And how do you know? Unit fraction is the key word here, right? Okay, how do you know? Figure that out, come back again. Hopefully you know it's the third multiple of the unit fraction 1/8. How do you know? Hopefully you could tell me 3/8 is the product, meaning I multiplied 1/8 and the counting number 3. You may have said, well, I did 1/8, 2/8, 3/8 to get there. Hopefully you could tell me one of those 2 things, but hopefully you do understand this concept right here, okay? Think about that. All right, so now I want you to write multiplication equations to represent the following fractions as multiples of unit fractions. So again, I said I want a multiplication equation that represents these fractions that are listed as multiples of unit fractions. Give that your best effort. Think that through. When you're done, come on back. Oh, and the bottom one is 1 and 4/5, okay? Don't let the space there fool you, but that's what that's supposed to be telling you, 1 and 4/5. Cool. Okay, hopefully you could tell me 3/10 is 3 times 1/10. 5/12 is 5 times 1/12. 11/6 is 11 times 1/6. And then for the 1 and 4/5, meant to just see if you could figure out what to do there. Hopefully you converted that back to an improper fraction to help yourself and then said, well, that's 9/5, right? So that's 9 times 1/5. Because you know the whole 1 is 5/5 plus the 4/5 fraction gives you 9/5. Hopefully you could figure that out. So in the previous lesson, you learned how to represent a fraction as the product of a whole number and a unit fraction. And in this lesson, you'll apply that understanding to help you multiply any fraction by a whole number. So here's the algebraic equation for you for today. Keep an open mind, stress ball. Make sure that you can stay with me on this. All right, so 9 times a over b equals 9 times a over b. Write that down. Think on it a little bit. We're going to be using it going forward. Okay, so now imagine that one lap around our outside track is 5/8 of a mile. I really don't know exactly how far it is, so I'm just saying that, okay? How far would a member of Team Kelly walk if she or he did 3 laps around this outside track? You can use fraction circles or pictures or a number line to represent this problem. Use some sort of visual to represent it and try and solve it, okay? When you're done, come back. All right, here's a few things you could have done. You could have made fraction circles and done just what they're showing here. So there's my 5/8, my 5/8, and my 5/8. And when I want to put them together, I would add these 3 over here and these 2 here, which is going to show me that I'm not quite at 2 full whole numbers, right? Okay, 1 missing. Or I could have numbered it this way. There's the first one, there's the second one, the third one. Still I'm missing 1 out of making it a whole. I could do a number line, 5/8, add another 5/8, add another 5/8. Still going to be 1 less than 2 whole, right, which is 15/8. Hopefully you got there. All right, so here's my picture. So here's what I'm asking. So how many groups of 5/8 are there? Hopefully you can answer that. And how would you write this as a multiplication equation? And then how many groups of the unit fraction 1/8 are there? And how would you write that as a multiplication equation? And how could you replace the 5/8 in the multiplication 3 times 5/8 equals 15/8 with an equivalent equation containing a whole number and a unit fraction? And then after you do all that work, I want you to think about, so what do you notice about all 3 equations that you wrote? So there's a bit for you to do here. Go ahead and do it. This shouldn't take you long. When you get all of it done, come back and check it out. All right, hopefully you see there's 3 groups of 5/8. You could see 3 times 5/8 equals 15/8. There would then be 15 1/8, because that's the unit fraction, right? 15 times 1/8 equals 15/8. And then the tricky one down here at the bottom. Could I do 3 times 5 times 1/8 equals 15/8? That's referencing back to this right here, when I looked at how am I doing this, right? So if you put this right beside this, you're going to see that that lines up perfectly with that algebraic equation. And you should figure out that no matter which way I did this, I'm getting the same amount. I get the same answer, right? All right, let's apply that a little more. So I want you to use what you know about multiples of unit fractions to multiply, or I want you to know that you can use, what you know about multiples of unit fractions to multiply any fraction by a whole number. So take a look. I did out the steps that you would take to do that conversion I was just talking about. So we could do 3 times 5/8 equals 3 times 5 times 1/8. I could move my parentheses and say, well, then I'll do the 2 whole numbers first. 3 times 5 times 1/8. And then 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm just tracking down here, right? This becomes this, times the 1/8. And that gives me 15/8. So in general, 3 times 5/8, I could represent that as 3 times 5 over 8, which is the same as saying, I'm putting now variable letters in, n times a over b. So the n is this 3, right? And the a is the 5, and the b is the 8, okay? It's the same as if I said n times a over b. There's the algebraic equation that goes with it. Right now you're probably saying, yeah, but why does it matter? I could have just told you this answer already. That's true, but this is going to come in handy when the problems aren't quite so simple. All right, so let's apply your understanding of a multiple of AB as a multiple of 1 over B in order to multiply the fraction by a whole number in these following problems. I thought that might be a little confusing to you, so I did one of the problems for you to show you what I meant. Okay, so if the problem is 3 times 4/5 equals, I want you to say, okay, so I could do 3 times 4 times 1/5 equals 3 times 4 times the 1/5, which equals 12 times 1/5, which equals 12/5. Or I could have written it 3 times 4 over 5 equals 12/5. That is totally following the previous slide's pattern. If you wrote that previous slide down, you could do these problems right beside it so you can keep it all straight. I know this is a little challenging. You really need to take your time. You may need to go back and re-watch part of the video. I understand that. It's a little challenging, but I think if you stay with it, you could get this. All right, so please try that. Do the next 2 problems. When you have them done, come on back. All right, hopefully you can follow through those exact same steps with these problems. Check yours. See if you have it written the same way I do. If not, don't worry, we will talk about it in class, but there's how you could work those problems out. You do see on the bottom one that it was 1 1/3, so I converted that 1 1/3 to 4/3, right? Because the 1 is 3/3 plus the extra third gives me 4/3. So I did that step first before I started the same process. Okay? Hopefully you get that. And we'll talk about it in class if we need to. Don't worry. All right, so you're going to try and apply that to these 2 pages where you're going to start off with drawing a picture, doing a multiplication equation, and then we'll just keep working on our way as that goes. Give it your best effort, and then come back when you're all done and check your answers. And again, we'll talk in class. All right, so pause if you need to complete these pages. And there are the answers. Go ahead and check your answers against mine and circle the ones you don't have right, and then you could correct it by writing in the right answers. Don't erase. Just circle it so I know which ones, when I glance down at your books tomorrow, which ones I need to make sure I spend some more time on. Okay, I hope you have a great night.